Beneath the dense canopy of the Guatemalan jungle lies one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in human history. The pyramids of Tikal, ancient, towering, impossibly precise, were built by a civilization that suddenly vanished without a trace. Who were the true architects of this lost city? What knowledge did they possess? And why did they seal it beneath stone and silence? From forgotten tunnels and forbidden glyphs to cosmic calendars and erased discoveries, this story will challenge everything you thought you knew about the past. What if the Maya weren't just builders of pyramids, but the last keepers of a forgotten world? Every clue brings us closer to a truth buried for over 1,000 years. So stay with us until the very end. The final revelation might just change how you see history itself. And if this journey moves you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we uncover the secrets time tried to erase. The mystery hidden in the jungle. In the dense heart of the Guatemalan rainforest, where howler monkeys echo through the canopy and vines hang heavy like ancient curtains, lie the silent giants of Tikal, the pyramids of a lost world. Towering above the treetops, these stone monuments were once the center of a thriving Maya civilization. Today, they stand like abandoned watchtowers of time, weathered by centuries of rain, moss, and silence. But what if they were more than temples? What if these pyramids weren't just built to worship the gods, but to hide something? For decades, archaeologists have studied Tikal. They've mapped its plazas, measured its temples, cataloged its artifacts, and yet something has always felt unfinished, incomplete, like the ruins are holding back their final secret. Tikal wasn't just a city, it was a masterpiece, built with such astronomical precision that some structures align perfectly with solstices, equinoxes, and planetary movements. The level of engineering, achieved without metal tools, wheels, or draft animals, remains baffling even today. Who were the minds behind this? Who were the architects that could carve harmony into stone, create cities that breathed with the cosmos? And perhaps the more disturbing question, where did they go? Because one day, suddenly, and without a clear reason, the builders of Tikal vanished. They left behind no records of their departure, no signs of conquest or catastrophe. Just empty plazas, sealed tombs, and pyramids that point to the stars, as if waiting. Waiting for what? As modern science peels back layers of Earth and time using satellite imaging, LiDAR scans, and underground radar, it's revealing structures that were never mapped before. Chambers, tunnels, and entire buildings hidden beneath the visible ruins. What were they for? Why were they hidden? Some believe Tikal is holding a forgotten chapter of human history. Others believe it's hiding something far more ancient. The stone giants. Tikal wasn't just a city, it was a statement, carved into stone, rising defiantly from the jungle, as if daring time to forget it. The pyramids here are immense. Temple War, for instance, rises over 230 feet into the sky, the tallest pre-Columbian structure in the Americas. From its summit, the rainforest stretches endlessly, a sea of green, broken only by the jagged crowns of other temples piercing the canopy. But it's not just their size that astonishes archaeologists, it's their precision. The pyramids of Tikal are aligned with celestial events to an astonishing degree. Temple Yes and Temple Dengfungai, facing each other across the Great Plaza, mark the solstices and equinoxes with remarkable accuracy. Their positioning mirrors the sun's movements, not approximately but exactly. This kind of architectural alignment suggests a deep understanding of astronomy, far beyond what was once believed possible for a civilization without telescopes. And yet, they did it. They did it without the wheel, without iron tools, without pack animals. So how? The limestone blocks that make up the temples are massive, some weighing several tons. There's no definitive explanation for how they were quarried, shaped, transported, and lifted with such precision. Some theorize that the Maya used wooden rollers or manpower alone, but recent experiments attempting to recreate the process have yielded mixed results. Even stranger, in some temples, the stone blocks are fitted so tightly that not even a blade of grass can grow between them. This level of craftsmanship echoes the mysteries of other ancient sites, like the Great Pyramids of Egypt or the megaliths of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, places where stone defies our expectations of ancient capability, places that challenge the idea that human civilization follows a neat, linear path. Could it be that the Maya possessed knowledge we've lost? Or, as some suggest, did they inherit these sites from an even earlier, undocumented civilization? Archaeologists point to the clear stylistic features of Maya design: the stepped temples, corbel arches, elaborate stucco masks. These structures are Maya. But what if the technology, the methods, came from somewhere else? We don't know, and that's the point. Tikal's pyramids are like sentinels, ancient machines made of stone, silently watching the stars for centuries. They weren't just temples, they were instruments, tools of measurement, possibly even warnings. The vanished class. Among all the mysteries that surround the Maya, one stands out above the rest. Not what they built, but who built it. The pyramids of Tikal, the observatories, the causeways that stretch for miles through the jungle. These weren't the work of simple laborers. They were designed by minds steeped in mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and ritual. A class of master planners and sacred architects once walked these plazas, and then, without warning, they were gone. Historians call it the Maya collapse, a dramatic decline in the southern lowlands during the 8th and 9th centuries. Cities were abandoned, monument carving ceased, great plazas fell silent. But this wasn't a slow decay, it was sudden. In some cases, entire urban centers were deserted in a matter of decades, and not just by farmers or villagers. The elite disappeared. The scribes, the engineers, the priests, the ones who held the knowledge, the keys to the civilization. Why? Some scholars blame prolonged droughts, others point to political unrest, resource depletion, or peasant revolts. These are valid theories, but none fully explain the selective silence that followed. It wasn't just a civilization that collapsed, it was a cognitive class that vanished. Writings ceased. Scientific calendars stopped being updated. The mathematical records, the complex astronomical data, abruptly ended. It's as if the ones who understood the machines they built, the language they wrote, the sky they measured, simply vanished or chose to leave. And here's where the mystery deepens, because in the archaeological layers above the collapse, we find less sophistication, simpler tools, cruder buildings, a step backward, not forward, in technology, as if the knowledge wasn't passed on. But why wouldn't they pass it on? Why would the most advanced minds of the Maya world allow their science, their records, and their entire cultural framework to vanish with them? Some theorists suggest this elite class may have formed a closed priesthood, a society within society, keeping their knowledge sacred, secret, and insulated. Others believe they may have fled, taking their knowledge with them to avoid persecution, or something even more obscure, the return of a cosmic cycle they had long anticipated. There are glyphs that hint at this, ritual texts that speak of a time when the keepers of balance would walk away from the world. Some say it's allegory, others believe it was a plan, a departure. And if that's true, then the pyramids of Tikal were not just buildings. They were farewells, stone testaments left behind by those who once looked to the stars and perhaps saw something coming we still don't understand. A departure written in the stars. To understand the Maya, you must look where they looked, upward. The night sky wasn't a backdrop for stories. It was a calendar, a clock, a map, and perhaps a warning. The Maya observed the heavens with astonishing precision. Their priests were also astronomers, tracking the movements of Venus, the Moon, and the Sun with methods that rivaled Renaissance Europe centuries before it existed. Their calendar system was complex, beautiful, and far ahead of its time. They didn't just measure days, they measured cycles. According to Maya cosmology, the universe moved through great eras, suns, as they called them, each ending in transformation. These weren't metaphors. They were cosmic timestamps, events etched into the sky and stone. One of the most famous Maya artifacts, the long count calendar, stirred global attention when it marked December 21, 2012 as the end of a major cycle. Despite modern media hype around an apocalypse, the Maya didn't predict destruction. They foresaw a reset, a transition. But what if the true transition came long before 2012? Archaeological data suggests that around the year 800 AD, during the heart of the Maya collapse, the sky began to behave strangely. A series of solar anomalies. A Venus cycle that the Maya had long tracked shifted slightly out of rhythm. Eclipses arrived earlier than predicted. Many glyphs from the late Classic period depict celestial upheaval. Suns with broken faces, gods falling from the sky, symbols of fire raining downward. To us, these might look like poetic metaphors, but to the Maya, they may have been literal messages from the universe. And they listened. Some scholars believe that the sudden abandonment of cities like Tikal, Copan, and Palenque wasn't just about internal decline, but about external cycles. That a rare convergence in the night sky may have convinced the elite that a cosmic shift was underway, and that the only answer was to leave, to go underground, to disappear, to wait. Some theories, fringe but worth asking, suggest the elite priest astronomers may have predicted a long-term instability in Earth's geomagnetic field, or even a minor astronomical event that modern science is only beginning to understand. Could a civilization so obsessed with timing simply walk away from power and infrastructure for no reason? Or did they see something we missed? The pyramids they left behind continue to point at the same stars, tracking the same motions, waiting for the sky to come full circle. Because to the Maya, history wasn't linear, it was circular, and maybe, just maybe, they plan to return when the stars are in their place again. The hidden architecture beneath. For centuries, Tikal revealed only what the jungle allowed. Towering pyramids, ceremonial plazas, temples consumed by vines. But what lay beneath the surface, under centuries of soil and stone, remained hidden. Until recently. Thanks to LiDAR, light detection and ranging, archaeologists have begun to peel away the layers of the rainforest without lifting a single leaf. By scanning the terrain from above with laser pulses, researchers have discovered something astounding. Tikal is far larger than anyone imagined. Not just sprawling, engineered. Beneath the visible ruins lie networks. Buried roads, water reservoirs, multi-tiered platforms, and, most shockingly, subterranean chambers, some perfectly rectangular, some circular, dome-like, all of them hidden until now. And these aren't natural caves. They are carved with purpose. Precision-cut stonework, ventilation shafts, pathways aligned not randomly, but with architectural intent. In some cases, aligned to the stars, just like the temples above. Why would a civilization obsessed with celestial observation build underground? One theory suggests ritual use, sacred chambers for ceremonies away from the eyes of the public. But others are less conventional. Some researchers believe these spaces may have served as data vaults or as sanctuaries for the elite class during times of cosmic instability or social collapse. One chamber discovered near Temple Phi had no entry point from above. No stairs, no visible door. It was sealed, its contents unknown. When researchers drilled carefully and inserted a small camera, they saw something chilling. An altar, still intact, surrounded by carvings, not in any known script. The designs resembled stars, spirals, and what looked eerily like orbital paths. This wasn't just ceremonial space. It was informational, possibly astronomical in nature. A dark observatory, hidden from the world. Another subterranean structure, found just north of Tikal's central plaza, appears to have functioned as a water purification complex, using sedimentation layers and mineral channels. If confirmed, it would be one of the most advanced pre-industrial water systems in the world. And yet, these feats are nowhere described in surviving Maya codices. Why would the Maya hide their greatest achievements? Unless the builders of Tikal were not just trying to preserve knowledge, but to protect it. From time, from invaders, or from something they feared. The deeper researchers go, the more Tikal resembles an engineered organism, with a surface built for ceremony and appearance, and a hidden skeleton built for function and survival. As we continue our journey, we must ask, were the pyramids the message, or were they just the cover? Echoes of Egypt. They rose on opposite sides of the world, separated by oceans, by time, by language, and yet they built the same shape. The pyramids of Egypt and the pyramids of Mesoamerica, including those at Tikal, share more than just a triangular silhouette. They share an enigma. Why did two of the most advanced ancient civilizations both choose to build massive, mathematically precise structures reaching toward the sky? Egypt's pyramids, older by more than 1,000 years, are tombs of pharaohs, resting places for kings and celestial bridges to the afterlife. The Maya pyramids served different functions: temples to the gods, platforms for rituals, stages for aligning with the heavens. But in both cases, the architecture was not just monumental, it was astronomical. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned almost perfectly with true north. So is Temple 4 at Tikal, aligned with the sun on the solstice. Both civilizations tracked celestial cycles with an obsessive precision that still humbles modern engineers. Coincidence? Perhaps, but the deeper you look, the more these patterns whisper of a shared understanding. Not necessarily direct contact, but a parallel conclusion drawn from ancient universal truths. Consider this. Both cultures believed in cyclical time. Both used calendars that tracked not just the solar year, but the movement of Venus, a planet deeply revered for its brilliance and symbolic power. Both built with mathematical sophistication that went unrecognized for centuries, and both left behind warnings. Egyptians carved spells and prophecies into the walls of their tombs. The Maya embedded cosmic shifts and era changes into their glyphs. And perhaps most haunting of all, both civilizations experienced a decline that historians still struggle to fully explain. Of course, there's no proven contact between Egypt and Mesoamerica, no known seafaring route, no shared language or art style. And yet, humans, across time and space, keep returning to the same forms. The pyramid is more than a structure. It's a symbol of ascent, of connection, of something reaching beyond human grasp. Some theorists suggest that both civilizations were tapping into something lost to us now, a deeper, older understanding of Earth's relationship with the stars. That the shape, the alignments, the functions were not cultural expressions but cosmic necessities. Were they inspired by similar skies? By dreams passed down from an earlier epoch? Or were both cultures responding to a memory? One not written in books, but in stone. The silence across the cities. Tikal was not alone. At its peak, it was part of a vast network of Maya cities stretching across modern-day Guatemala, Belize, Mexico, and Honduras. They were connected by raised highways known as Sac-Biob, and by a shared culture rooted in astronomy, mathematics, and ritual. But between the years 750 and 900 AD, something happened. They went silent. Not just Tikal, but Copan, Palenque, Yaxchilan, Coba, Bonampak, dozens of thriving urban centers, each with its own rulers, temples, observatories, and writing systems, all abandoned within a remarkably short span of time. This was not an isolated event, it was a regional collapse. And what's most chilling is what's missing. There were no mass graves, no signs of conquest, no evidence of a sweeping war or pandemic. The cities were left intact. Tools neatly arranged, temples sealed, as if the people expected to return. But they never did. The writing stopped. The calendar dates ceased. Stone-carved histories, which the Maya were known for recording with precision, simply ended. Why? Theories abound. Climate models suggest prolonged drought. Core soil samples point to deforestation and crop failure. Some archaeologists argue that overpopulation pushed the environment to its limits. Others believe intercity warfare and political fragmentation made the region unstable, and yet none of these fully explain the uniformity of the silence. It wasn't just the collapse of farming or royalty, it was the disappearance of knowledge. The builders, the astronomers, the architects, the minds behind the calendars and the pyramids vanished without passing their wisdom on. It's as if the elite class that once charted the stars, designed the temples, and tracked the cosmic calendar simply withdrew from the world. Was it loss or intention? Some glyphs carved just before the collapse speak of a great change, the day the sky turned, when the gods walked away, when the mirrors darkened. Poetic metaphors, perhaps, but to a culture that saw time as sacred and cyclical, they may have described a moment of rupture. Not in the earth, but in the order of things. And so, across a vast region, the stone cities stood quiet. Monkeys returned to the plazas, vines crept up the stairways, and the pyramids, once alive with fire and ceremony, became monuments to a mystery that remains unsolved. But some believe the silence was not the end. It was the beginning of something else, something deliberate. The Great Departure Theory. What if the Maya didn't collapse? What if they left? This idea, long dismissed by mainstream archaeology, is quietly gaining attention as new patterns emerge. Patterns that suggest a deliberate withdrawal, not a chaotic fall. It's called the Great Departure Theory. The notion is simple but profound, that the elite class of Maya engineers, astronomers, and priests, the ones responsible for the monumental architecture and cosmic knowledge, did not vanish due to war, famine, or disease. They chose to leave, not as refugees, but as guardians of knowledge. Supporters of this theory point to the intentional nature of many abandoned sites. In Tikal, for example, certain altars appear to have been ritually sealed. In Copan, temples were filled with stone, not destroyed but buried. In Palenque, royal tombs were closed off with elaborate ceremonies as if to preserve rather than protect. There are no signs of looting, no scattered belongings, no hurried escape. Everything was put away. Why? Some believe it was a spiritual decision, that the end of a cosmic cycle signaled a moment of withdrawal. Others suggest a more practical motive, that the priestly class saw instability coming, political fragmentation, environmental decline, and chose to retreat before everything unraveled. But where would they have gone? One possibility lies in the highlands, the mountainous regions of southern Mexico and Guatemala. There, newer cities emerged after the so-called collapse. Their art is different, their language evolved, but hints of Maya science remain, subtle echoes in temple alignments and mathematical glyphs. Another theory is more dramatic. It suggests that a select group of Maya elite may have gone underground. not metaphorically, but literally. Beneath Tikal and other cities lie tunnels, sealed chambers, and massive reservoirs. Could these have become sanctuaries for a knowledge class determined to survive the chaos above? There's no definitive proof, but in 2018, a LiDAR survey over northern Guatemala revealed over 60,000 previously unknown structures, many hidden beneath centuries of jungle growth. Among them were deep, interconnected complexes, not just ceremonial, but possibly residential or even monastic. Could these have been built as refuges? Were they places to protect scrolls, instruments, secrets, the intellectual heart of the Maya world? Or was the departure symbolic, a final act by a people who had mastered the cycles of time and knew that their moment had passed? What remains is a haunting pattern. A civilization that once lit up the jungle with knowledge and ceremony did not burn out. It simply dimmed, by choice. The calendar of cycles. To most of us, a calendar is simple. A grid of days, months, years. A tool to manage time. But for the ancient Maya, time was sacred. It didn't move in a straight line. It moved in circles. Vast, cosmic spirals where every event echoed across eras. Their calendar system was among the most advanced ever created. It was not just one calendar, but many. The Tzolk'in, the Hab, and the Long Count. Each served a different purpose, tracking religious cycles, solar years, and grand cosmic epochs. And at the center of it all was rhythm. The Maya believed that time repeated, not like clockwork, but like breath. That each great era, or a sun, had its rise, its peak, and its inevitable fall. Not through destruction alone, but through transformation. Their most famous calendar, the Long Count, gained global attention in the early 2000s when it was claimed to predict the end of the world on December 21, 2012. But in truth, the Maya never spoke of an apocalypse. That date merely marked the end of a Baktun, a 394-year period, and the beginning of a new one. It wasn't an end, it was a reset. But here's where it gets strange. Many of the great Maya cities, including Tikal, were abandoned right around the close of the previous Baktun, roughly 1,100 years before 2012. A timeline that suggests something deeper, that the Maya elite may have acted in response to the calendar, not in spite of it. Some glyphs recovered from late classic sites speak cryptically of the turning of the sky and the sleeping of knowledge. Others refer to a coming age when silence must fall until the circle returns. It raises a haunting possibility. Did the Maya plan their departure according to a cosmic schedule? Were they counting down to a date that modern scholars overlooked? Not the end of the calendar, but a moment when the stars themselves shifted. Modern astronomy tells us that Earth's position in the galaxy changes slowly over thousands of years, something known as the precession of the equinoxes. A phenomenon the Maya may have understood, even if by other terms. Their pyramid alignments, after all, are so precise they reflect solar and planetary positions with uncanny accuracy. Could it be that the Maya didn't just predict seasonal events, but galactic ones? And if so, what were they preparing for? A change in the stars, a change in themselves, or a return? Because for the Maya, time wasn't something you escaped. It was something you were woven into, the underground kingdom. Above ground, Tikal is a wonder, but below the temples, under centuries of stone and soil, lies a world that is only now beginning to reveal itself. A world that may rewrite everything we thought we knew about the Maya. In 2018, a breakthrough changed everything. Using LiDAR, a laser-based imaging technology that maps terrain through dense vegetation, archaeologists discovered not just roads and plazas hidden beneath the jungle canopy, but entire subterranean complexes below Tikal. Cavities, corridors, carved chambers. Not natural caves, designed spaces. Some were wide enough to walk through, others were domed, with perfectly smooth walls. They sat beneath major temples, like roots beneath a tree, mirroring the structures above. What were they? Early theories labeled them as drainage systems, but new data suggests a more complex truth. Many of the underground structures align with the same celestial patterns as the temples above: solstices, equinoxes, lunar cycles. These weren't utility systems, they were architectural echoes, a sacred mirror of the world above, built into the earth. And within some of these chambers, archaeologists have found something even stranger. No offerings, no bones, no decoration, just silence, as if these were not tombs, but spaces of waiting. What could the Maya have been building below the earth in such secrecy with such care? Some believe these were initiation chambers, places where priest astronomers meditated or performed rituals out of public view. Others suspect they were vaults, meant to preserve knowledge through turbulent eras. But there's a third theory, a darker one, that the Maya elite built these chambers as sanctuaries, not for worship, but for escape. That they foresaw a time when the surface would no longer be safe, and built a kingdom beneath it. One that still exists. In the deepest recorded chamber beneath Temple 5, a team of researchers found a sealed room with no access point. No stairs, no door. Inside, when a probe was sent through a drilled hole, the camera revealed an altar, untouched for over 1,000 years, still upright, still facing north, perfectly aligned with Polaris, the North Star. How? Why? Who sealed it? And why didn't they return? To the Maya, caves were not just empty spaces. They were portals, entrances to Xibalba, the underworld. Not a place of punishment, but of mystery, of transformation. A place where the dead walked and the gods spoke. Could the tunnels beneath Tikal have been more than architecture? Could they have been gateways? Between eras, or even between dimensions of reality the Maya believed were layered, coexisting. Modern science can't answer these questions. Not yet, but the evidence is growing. The greatest secrets of the Maya may not lie in what they built above the jungle, but in what they left beneath it. The builders who moved on. Tikal was not an island. It was part of a vast, interconnected world. A Mesoamerican tapestry of city-states, trade routes, and shared mythologies. And when the great cities of the southern lowlands fell silent, the story of the Maya did not end. It shifted. Northward, westward, into the highlands of Guatemala, into the Yucatan, and beyond. Here, a strange pattern emerges. New civilizations rose. The Itza, the Toltecs, the Mixtecs, each claiming roots in places that no longer existed. Each building cities of their own. But within their myths, within their architecture, are traces of something older, something remembered. The Itza, who later founded the famed city of Chichen Itza, claimed descent from a mysterious group of enlightened travelers, a people who arrived from the south, bearing knowledge of calendars, astronomy, and monumental construction. The Toltecs told similar stories, of skywatchers who could calculate eclipses and chart the stars without error. Their most sacred sites were built on precise celestial alignments, using geometry that eerily echoes the earlier Maya blueprints. Coincidence or migration? Could the master builders of Tikal have relocated, blending into emerging cultures, passing down fragments of knowledge through whispered legend and encoded symbols? Some linguists believe so. Linguistic drift patterns suggest a deliberate movement of elite classes from the lowlands to the highlands, not refugees, but carriers of something precious: knowledge. But it wasn't only science they carried. Across multiple Mesoamerican cultures, one recurring figure appears in myth. A pale-skinned teacher, often bearded, dressed in robes, who arrives from a distant place, bringing civilization, astronomy, and law, only to vanish, promising one day to return. To the Maya, he was Kukulkan. To the Aztecs, Quetzalcoatl. To the Toltecs, Quetzalcoatl. Different names, same archetype. Was this figure a god? or a memory, distorted by time, perhaps, but rooted in real individuals who brought forgotten knowledge to new lands. It's possible that the builders of Tikal never truly disappeared, only changed form, leaving behind the grandeur of stone for something more adaptable and less visible. In this chapter of the story, the mystery isn't about what was lost, but about what survived, scattered like embers across Mesoamerica, and perhaps waiting to be reassembled. In the next chapter, we'll turn to the science, to modern genetics, and ask a bold question. Did the Maya master builders belong to a separate lineage, one not only culturally distinct, but biologically unique? Bloodlines and builders. The temples of Tikal tell one story. The bones beneath them may tell another. In recent years, breakthroughs in genetic archaeology have opened doors once locked by time. With DNA extracted from ancient remains, scientists are beginning to map the biological history of the Maya and uncover subtle but significant patterns. And one of the most intriguing discoveries, there may have been more than one Maya people, not in name, but in function, and perhaps in origin. Studies of skeletal remains from elite burial chambers, particularly from major ceremonial centers like Tikal, Copan, and Palenque, have revealed genetic markers that differ from those found in surrounding rural populations. In simple terms, the builders were different. They were taller, denser boned, with more symmetrical skulls and signs of a diet richer in protein. But even more striking are rare mitochondrial DNA strands, maternal lines, that appear to have no direct modern descendants in the region. They vanish from the gene pool, just as the cities were abandoned. Coincidence? Some researchers believe this elite class may have practiced genetic isolation, marrying only within specialized priestly or astronomical lineages to preserve sacred knowledge, a kind of intellectual caste system woven into the blood. Others speculate something even more radical, that these individuals were the remnants of an earlier population, predating the classic Maya by centuries, possibly even millennia, and that the Maya civilization as we know it was built upon their legacy. This could explain why the sudden appearance of complex writing, astronomy, and megalithic construction around 250 AD seems so abrupt, like someone flipped a switch. Could there have been a forgotten civilization, one absorbed or erased by history? The Maya did not see time as linear. Perhaps their culture inherited a system already in place, layered, reinterpreted, reborn. Just as the city of Tikal was built in phases, each one rising upon the bones of the last. To the Maya, lineage was sacred. Kings claimed descent from the gods. Priests guarded their bloodlines fiercely. Ritual, bloodletting, was more than symbolism. It was communication, an offering of code written in flesh. So what if some blood wasn't meant to be shared? What if the builders of Tikal were never meant to be remembered, but preserved, in legend, in stone, in DNA, waiting for the moment someone would see the patterns hidden in the genome of a fallen empire? The stones that warned, the Maya wrote in stone, not just stories of kings and battles, but equations, prophecies, and cosmic alignments, encoded into glyphs that still defy complete translation. For decades, researchers viewed these inscriptions as historical. Dates, names, ceremonies. But a growing number of epigraphers are realizing something deeper. Some Maya texts weren't meant to record. They were meant to warn. On the walls of temples, stelae, and even pottery shards, we find repeating symbols, not tied to individual cities or rulers, but scattered across the entire Maya world. One symbol appears again and again. A descending sky serpent, often depicted with stars in its mouth and flames at its tail. Scholars once believed it represented comets or eclipses, but newer interpretations suggest it marked a celestial event, one feared enough to halt calendars and close temples. In Tikal, a panel discovered beneath Temple 3 shows a god tearing a scroll in half while others avert their gaze. Below this image is a short inscription that has resisted full translation, but one glyph is clear. It reads, Ajakukstan, the speech that must not return. What does that mean? Some believe it referred to a forgotten language, one the Maya were forbidden to use again. Others believe it marked a prophecy, a pattern in the sky or on earth that, if repeated, would bring disaster. In Copan, a staircase of glyphs tells the story of a lineage that suddenly ends, not with death, but with a journey inward. No enemy, no war, just vanishing. Some glyphs speak of stars that darken and shift, of mirrors cracked in the sky, and of a third eye that must remain closed until the fifth sun bows. Were these allegories, or astronomical metaphors for a cataclysm the Maya foresaw and feared? Even more chilling are the handful of glyphs that seem anomalous, written in forms that don't match any known dialect. They appear more geometric than linguistic. Spirals, loops, interlocking forms that resemble code. And here the theories begin to divide. Were these the last messages of the elite, intended for a future generation? Were they fragments of knowledge too dangerous to be spoken aloud? Or were they written by those who weren't entirely Maya to begin with? Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. The Maya understood that knowledge could be powerful, but also dangerous. They carved their wisdom in stone, not just to remember, but to contain. In the next chapter, we'll move forward in time to the 20th century and explore strange incidents involving early archaeologists, government cover-ups, and data that mysteriously disappeared from public records. Because Tikal hasn't just kept its secrets, it has swallowed them. Erased discoveries. The jungle doesn't just hide the past. Sometimes, it hides the present. As early as the 19th century, Western explorers began stumbling upon the silent ruins of the Maya world. Towering temples swallowed by vines, carvings so intricate they seemed almost machine-made. But what most people don't know is this: not everything that was found was ever shared. In the 1930s, a series of expeditions funded by private foundations and backed quietly by governments made their way into the heart of Tikal. They weren't looking for gold or treasure. They were interested in the alignments, the way the temples communicated with the sky. Some of those researchers returned home, others didn't. Their notes, strangely, were either lost in a fire, classified for review, or never finalized. In the 1960s, satellite imaging from early American spy programs accidentally captured thermal anomalies beneath Temple 4, unusual heat signatures below the Earth, suggesting power sources or buried chambers. The findings were labeled non-strategic, sealed and withheld from academic release. Even as late as the 1990s, archaeologists from Europe and Japan reported discovering tunnels beneath the central plaza that matched no known building phase. But their published work stopped abruptly. Journals that planned to feature their studies pulled them without explanation. And then there are the testimonies, private letters, voice recordings, unpublished memoirs, whispers of sealed rooms that should not exist, carvings in languages not Maya, instruments that seemed out of place in time, magnetically charged stones, obsidian tablets that registered faint radio frequencies. These accounts never made it to museums. They remain in dusty archives or personal safes, locked away by families who say there were things they saw that weren't meant to be uncovered. Was it caution? Or something more deliberate? One government document, declassified in part, refers to Tikal as a site of potential influence on cultural destabilization. Another mentions non-conforming topography and recommends non-interference. In other words, don't dig too deep. Theories, of course, abound. That certain finds in Tikal challenged accepted timelines. That the Maya possessed knowledge of the Earth's magnetic fields, energy conduction, or time cycles that modern science still doesn't fully understand. Or worse, that someone before the Maya did, and that evidence of their presence, their structures, their warnings, was quietly removed from the record. Because sometimes rewriting history isn't about changing the past, it's about hiding it. In the final chapter, we'll ask the question that echoes through every layer of Tikal, from its pyramids to its glyphs, from its tunnels to its silence. Were the Maya master builders, or were they the last keepers of something far older, the keepers of a forgotten world? The pyramids still stand, in the heat, in the rain, in the silence. They rise out of the Guatemalan jungle like stone memories, too precise to be accidental, too ancient to be fully understood. And while the world moved forward, building cities of glass and metal, Tikal waited. But what exactly was it waiting for? To many, the Maya were brilliant stargazers, builders, artists, priests. To others, they were survivors of something older, keepers, not creators, of knowledge passed down from a lost world, a world whose blueprints are etched not just in stone, but in myth, in geometry, in the persistent hum of unanswered questions. The patterns are there, pyramids aligned with the stars, calendars that cycle through eternity, temples built atop older foundations, as though following instructions we can no longer read. What if we're looking at history backward? What if the Golden Age wasn't ahead of us, but behind us? Maybe Tikal wasn't the beginning of something great. Maybe it was the last chapter in a story we've forgotten how to tell. A civilization that understood time not as something to measure, but as something to live inside. A people who did not fall, but stepped back, quietly, deliberately, leaving behind clues, maps, warnings, and questions. Who built the pyramids? Where did the architects go? What did they know that we've since forgotten? There are no final answers, only traces, symbols on stone, tunnels beneath trees, a silence that speaks louder than words. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the past isn't trying to tell us what was. Maybe it's trying to remind us what could be. If you've made it this far, thank you for taking the journey. If this story sparked a thought, gave you chills, or challenged what you thought you knew, leave a like, share it with someone curious, and subscribe for more stories that dig beneath the surface of history. Because sometimes the real truth is buried just a little deeper.